Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to this edition of PANGEA Talk CEO Series. Thought leadership conversations with some of the world's leading transformational change agents in the corporate leadership space. Joining us today is CEO of Smart Cocoon, Mr. Andrew Bowen. Andrew, welcome to PANGEA Talks.
Thank you very much for having me today.
Andrew, you're doing some remarkable things at Smart Cocoon. The audience is very much curious to know, why did Andrew decide to take up the reins at Smart Cocoon to lead it from a CEO chair? I'd like to open with that question, and then we'll get to know you as the conversation unfolds. Over to you, Andrew.
Okay, so actually it's actually a great question for you to ask today. So I was in this kind of very same home office kind of when I first got the ping if I was interested in pursuing kind of the CEO position at Smart Cocoon. At the time, I haven't been looking for anything. And so I thought it was really curious, like, how did this come about? What's this company about? Is this something I even want to do? And then what was really interesting, so that first day, your spidey senses always go up, okay, is this real? How good is this company, sure. Right? So then I said, okay, I got to do some homework before I even reply to the email, right? So quickly kind of research Smart Cocoon. I'm like, okay, this is really cool. So one of the things for me that I hadn't told anybody was I've been very passionate about tech and clean tech. I'm just a person that I believe that you can make small changes in your life that make a big difference to the environment. And this just all of a sudden hit that. And I was like, okay, this is interesting. You know how life happens for you sometimes. So I thought that was interesting. And then when I started looking into Smart Cocoon and the problem they were solving about rooms that are too hot or too cold, I was at that very time is August of 2022, sun's beating in, it's 30 degrees. I got these big windows south facing in front of me. I'm roasting in this room. I have to keep the door shut because you have other people working in the home or your kids are running around making noise, right? So it gets like a little easy bake oven in here. I'm like, man, if this thing works, this is amazing. I need this, right? So immediately I go on to their website before I even email back. I purchase a unit so that way I know it's getting shipped to my house because I want to test it out. Like, how good is this tech, right? And then the other part that was really curious for me was, I guess my personal connection too as well was that it was in the HVAC space. And when I was 9 years old, my grandfather, who was kind of a World War II veteran, he actually had a metal fabrication business where they actually manufactured ductwork. And so there was a little tie in there too. So this is really interesting. A lot of these connections are kind of telling me I just pursue this a little bit further. And then as I did more research on the company, I got the device, I started having conversations with the founders of the company and the investors. And I just knew it was the right place for me because the company was already in a good position, but I knew what was the potential for the company was just so much greater. This problem that we have with rooms that are too hot or too cold are literally a problem for like 64 million homes because the way we've done ductwork and the way we use forced air systems has not changed in over a century. And for me, that was the kind of the big aha moment. It's like, this is big and I want to be part of kind of growing this company that can help as many customers as we can.
Your passion comes through, it just gushes out of you. So I'm so excited to hear how much you're connected, not only personally, but intellectually to the project. And I think part of your heart, you said something interesting philosophically, that life is happening for you. So I feel like you're bringing a lot more than your decades of experience and intellectual capacity. You've got an MBA, which we'll talk about, where you went to school here in Canada. Queens, I believe, is where you went to school.
Correct.
And finished up your MBA. You were at the Bank of Canada for a time. But what I love beyond the CB is what I like to go is into the hearts and the minds of the CEOs we talk to. And I appreciate that glimpse of how you see the world from a philosophical perspective, that life is happening for you. So much to talk about on this conversation, Andrew. But before we get into all this really neat stuff, I know for a fact that people who may not have heard about it in the past want to know, what is a Smart Cocoon?
Yeah, so that's like a great question. So I like to tell a little bit of stories. So just imagine.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Yeah. So imagine you're coming home late after work. You've worked overtime. It's dark out. You turn the corner as you're kind of getting to your home, and all of a sudden you see this blaring lights everywhere. Like, why is every light on in the house? And at first you're thinking, I know I'd be thinking like, crap, did I forget we have a party tonight? Was I supposed to bring something home? Like, what did I miss? Like, why are all the lights on, right? Usually there's no reason to have all the lights on. But it turns out that imagine you only had one light switch to turn on all the lights in your home. we think that's ridiculous. I think that's an incredible waste, right? But every day we come home and we have one thermostat to control the temperature in every room in your home.
In the home.
It just doesn't make sense, right? And so Smart Cocoon is really coming in to solve that problem, to give you that room by room temperature control. So all you need to do is basically drop that kind of smart booster fan in your vent, and it'll automatically start bringing more warm or cool air into that room that's either too hot or too cold. And that was my same situation as I'm in here in my office. When I'm facing south, this roasts, I'm on the second floor, it roasts in the summer, and I needed to get more air volume in the cool air in the summer to make sure that I stay kind of comfy and cozy in my room at my office here. So that's what Smart Cocoon's all about.
Yeah, I really love it. And, there's some research done at Lausanne School of Engineering at York University back in 2019 just to evaluate the smart booster fan for advanced HVAC systems. And what they found when they tested the Smart Cocoon in that university study at York and residential homes is that they wanted to see if the Smart Cocoon smart booster fan did in fact enhance the performance of residential HVAC systems. And what they found in that study is that in terms of its ability to deliver conditioned air to reduce energy consumptions of HVAC system, the study wanted to see in a quantifiable way what the change was by including the smart booster fan. And they found that with the installation of the Smart Cocoon, it can reduce the HVAC system's operation time by up to 61%, and results showing a significant improvement in airflow in a bad vent by more than 100%. And this has the typical results in a typical residential homes. And one could say that there's a reduction in energy costs, but I want to have you tell that story because it's a pretty big cost reduction considering where the minds of Canadians are right now with the significant cost of living increases we've been feeling in the past few years with food and gas prices. If we can find a solution to help reduce costs around the home this year and to the years ahead in North America and around the world, I think we'll be contributing in a very tangible way where people would appreciate. And I think that's some of the solution that Smart Cocoon is bringing to the table. And maybe I'll leave you with that thought to expand on what you've seen in the past little while that you've been in the CEO chair. How has Smart Cocoon improved the lives of its users?
Well, it's a really great question. So maybe I know before we got on, you were just talking about that we were at the kind of a home show, the Toronto National Home Show, just a few weeks ago. And what was really interesting was when we talked to customers, we asked them, do you have a room that's too hot or too cold? And almost everybody says yes. Like it happens over and over again. And then the second question we asked was, tell me about that room that you're really experiencing those uneven temperatures or whatnot. And what was really interesting was immediately you could see on their face, there'd be kind of almost like a stress there and an agitation, right? And so oftentimes it was kind of a second or third floor bedroom. Especially in the summers, it was just way too hot. As you can imagine, you've seen all the studies already. What happens when you don't get enough sleep, right? If you're tossing and turning because it's too hot or whatnot, it has major health implications. There's actually other studies that also show that even just a modest increase, like even 3 degrees in temperatures, can actually have impacts on your actual physical health as well. So that's why all of us really want to have that control of that kind of temperature. And what we also found when we were talking to all these customers was it was guilt, especially from parents. I'm a parent as well. And if you have a child that has one of those rooms that's way too hot or it's too cold in the kind of winter, you kind of feel guilty about it, right? You don't like the fact that they're in your home and they're not getting that comfort they deserve. So that was a big kind of aha moment for me. I know when I was talking to a lot of the customers, like how much of an impact that has that we kind of take for granted. We accept that's the truth that we can have this hot room, right? And then on top of that, as you talk more about customers and you talk about, that this is the other one, BC Hydro did these interesting studies about how often people change the thermostat when their partners aren't looking, because there's this whole thing where everyone feels that they have a different temperature that they need to be comfortable, right?
Sure.
And so what ends up happening for a lot of people, and this relates back to the study you talked about, is oftentimes to people to compensate for that room that's too hot, they just try and crank that air conditioner up max just to try and get that room that they're uncomfortable in cooler, which it does help, but at the same time, your other rooms are now getting too cold because there's too much air getting into those other rooms and not enough to where you need it. And that's exactly the reason why the energy costs go up for people, because they end up changing the whole thermostat. This, back to that light switch analogy, you're trying to raise or cool the temperature of your entire home, as opposed to, this is the room that's not cool enough, let's put the cool air in that room. And that's where you get the massive energy savings. So up to like 30% energy savings by using the Smart Cocoon, because you're diverting the cool air to where you need it, and you're not overcooling other areas of your home. So it's another thing to feel good about. So for most people, they want to say, okay, solve my problem, I want to sleep well at night. And the second thing is, most people's energy bills in both Canada and the US have almost doubled this year, right? That's what energy analysts are showing. It's just a huge increase in kind of energy bills. So it's nice to know that you're doing something that makes you more comfortable, it saves energy, and then it greens your home as well. And part of the reason, going back to the conversation about why I joined Smart Cocoon as CEO, it's just going back to that belief that I had, that sometimes people think that you need to kind of do these big, massive things to have an impact on the world, right? But you can imagine if everybody just takes this one little device and puts it in their home, in these 64 million homes, and that saves, 30% on your HVAC portion of your energy costs, what that would do to the world, right? It's all these little things, and this is not $1,000 investment, right? It's a small kind of investment to make things better. So that's, for me, that's where kind of my passion comes out, because it's kind of like one of those things like, why didn't anyone think of this before, right? But it was because technology just hadn't caught up yet, right? We now have the technology to be able to sense what things are happening, like with our device. And these smart devices are now able to kind of compensate for these things that we're kind of lacking in our heating and cooling systems.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about a few things you shared there, and you talked about the home and you used the word comfort. If there's one place that we all, at least, I'm going to use the word deserve, to be comfortable, that's in our own homes. And now you've created a technology with your team that will enable that. And you talked about, this is, his joke gets made fun of in sitcoms and novels and magazines about spouses changing the thermostat all the time. And, I've seen it, all the way back when, I forget that sitcom with Paul Reiser and Helen Hunt. It's very old. You can tell by the gray in my beard. I've been around a long time, but I remember a scene from that sitcom where they were fighting over the thermostat. I've seen it in the Cosby Show. It's been there forever, and I think everyone can relate to it. But here you're saying is, hey, you guys, you don't have to do that anymore, because the comedy scenes are going to have to be rewritten, because Smart Cocoon is solving that problem and doing so effectively with technology. Now, I know, in this conversation, it's you and I talking. You're the CEO of Smart Cocoon, and you got this really incredible team surrounding you with the technology and the manufacturing. Would love for you to just talk a little bit about the team, so folks get a sense of how strong the bench strength is with the team at Smart Cocoon.
Yeah, great question. So as you know, our product, we actually have like the software component and then the hardware component. Isan, who's our CTO, he's actually on the software side of our business. And so he's done startups before. He's been in this industry for a long time. He's been in the tech space. He's had multiple exits. He's definitely the perfect person for us to kind of have on our team. And he's one of the co-founders. And he's the one the original founder was actually Cave, and he's on our mechanical side, so the hardware side of the business. And how he actually discovered this opportunity, they were installing, they were kind of looking at in the smart home space, what could we install? And then when he was talking to Isan later on, and this is later on down the road, Isan's like, you've talked about a lot of these different products, but what's one that can really make a big difference where there's kind of like no real good solution in the market? And then that's where they thought about these booster fans. And the difference was being able to take that hardware, which someone might think of as just a simple fan, and then adding the technology, which is on the eSAN side, tied to the technology, to be able to start thinking about like, how can we use, machine learning to start figuring out, and AI to start figuring out when these fans should come on and off, and also how do we can control that temperature in that specific room. And so that's how those two kind of ideas started merging together. Something very simple, mechanical, all of a sudden became in with the technology. And that's in with with our computer chip. We've got temperature sensors on the unit to know when to turn on off the unit. And what's actually really cool, again, about the bench strength of the team is how they can play off each other and figure out, this is what we can do on the software side, this is what we can do on the hardware side, and that's where kind of the, the magic happens. And then obviously the other part of the team is like, how do we grow our sales? Like, how do we have, and And Ross is kind of one of our key people here in partnerships. So he's worked for big companies like Coca-Cola, Miracle-Gro. And so he's really helping kind of build out kind of our retail channels across Canada and the US. And then most recently, we're starting to launch now into our B2B channels, which is with the HVAC kind of service companies. And I really believe these are the kind of the key, is going to be a really key partnership for us going forward. And the reason for that is, as you can imagine, they've been in homes, they're in hundreds of homes every day, these companies. They've experienced this problem over and over, and they never really had a good solution before this. Before, some of the solutions could be, I'll rip out your drywall, I'll try and put a vent in the drywall, patch it back up, and you couldn't turn it on and off, it didn't have temperature sensors. So all these things, and for most homeowners, they're like, I don't want to spend that much money and rip out my drywall and try and fix this, right? Or some of the other solutions were like add another air conditioner in your room, like literally put a split level in your bedroom, which is, again, thousands of dollars. And so for these HVAC companies, what we found was, as we're having these discussions, is that the ones that think like we do, in the sense of that we want to give the customer the best solution and the easiest solution. So for them, when they start hearing about what we're doing, they're like, this makes a lot of sense. We have so many customers wanting to do this, to solve this problem, but we never had a really good way to solve it before. And for us, the reason why that was important, and then again, how we choose our partnership, we always have to make sure we're choosing partners who care about the customer, and that what we talked about before is that home comfort. It's not about, selling them the biggest thing, like the big new, because unfortunately, some companies will try and sell you a bigger, say, air conditioner, but that's not the problem. You're not getting enough airflow in the room. Even putting another bigger air conditioner is not going to solve that problem. And that's what we discovered when we were talking to some of these HVAC companies, is like, how they think about their customers is much different. So we want to partner with people that think like we do, and we're trying to improve the lives of our customers, and they have to have that same kind of passion for giving the best solution for their customers. So it was really interesting to me to, again, it's easy to say we're going to partner with this group of people, but within that segment, you always have to make sure they have the same philosophies as you do as a company, just in terms of our how we want to treat our customers, and we want to make sure they're giving them the best solution.
And that's one of the philosophies that drew PANGEA to Smart Cocoon, is your philosophy aligns with our value systems, where we take a look at families first and communities first. We want to actually build strong, healthy families and communities with the work that we do. We look for firms to partner with who are trying to create meaningful value, meaningful change, rather than just drop another product on the shelf and hope it sells. That's, I think there's a significant level of intelligence behind the Smart Cocoon idea, and it actually is reflected in some of the feedback that we've gotten from one of our clients who's a CEO of another company. You would recall being at this meeting where she said, smart families use Smart Cocoon. And I think you remember that statement.
Yeah, I was like, that's great. Can we more of that?
It was just wonderful when she said that. And you talked about the technology, the IT piece. I think what people listening to this podcast need to know is not only is there AI technology built into what we've included in the Smart Cocoon device, there's also an app. Everyone seems to love the idea of controlling their world from the palm of their hand, from the light switches to temperature. And of course, the Smart Cocoon device can be controlled by an app. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the dynamic nature of the app and how folks are enjoying using it with the device?
Exactly. Another great question. So just to start off, so our device, you can plug it in the wall and basically like literally drop it in your vent, plug it in the wall, put your vent cover back on, it's good to go. It'll run, you don't need the app. But there's a lot of people that they want that extra control of their app. So I'll give you an example of where this can be a really good solution. Say, for example, even this office. I'm in this office right now and I want it 22 degrees. Maybe my wife comes in later and she wants it at 24 degrees. So she wants it at a different temperature. So within the app, you can actually set the temperature you want for this specific room. So it allows you to kind of customize what you want. Other things you can do too is, for some people, for example, you want to change the level of the fan speed. So in other words, maybe I'm coming into this room in the winter and it's really cold and I'm like, I got to start work in a half hour and I want this room warm quickly because I don't want to freeze, right? So I can actually turn up the fan speed to maximum before I come in the office and really get this temperature kind of heated up. Again, with the palm of your hand, just literally dialing things back and forth and have that specific control to your needs. So I'll give you a couple of examples where, how customers innovate and you're like, this is a cool idea. So some people, when they go to sleep, they want it quiet. So they want it like on a low kind of stealth mode fan speed. Other people, and sometimes it's with their children, they want the fan speed higher to give that kind of ambient noise so their kids aren't waking up to like the fire trucks and whatnot, right? So they're using it in very, very different ways, as well as things like, maybe you want scheduling, right? So you're doing something in a different way at different times. So like when you're bedtime, you want a specific schedule that you want for the fan to be on or off, or a certain fan speed, or when you're in your office. So the app gives you that kind of control in the palm of your hand, and you could do that from anywhere. So you could be on your way home from work and you're like, I still need to do an extra couple hours at the home office. I want the temperature a bit warmer now. And then you can literally set that on your way home, and you get home, you're comfortable, right? So that's what I love about the app, that control. And then as well, it also gives us the power to start adding new features for our customers in the future.
And I love that your words and your actions line up. This entire solution is about creating comfort in the home, and you're giving clients an opportunity to do that or customers an opportunity to do that with the app with further and greater control. And what I like about it is you talked, even quoting from that Lassonde study coming out of the School of Engineering at York, the time it would take for you to change the temperature in your destination room where you're going to end up in when you come home from work, or if you're getting ready for another meeting and you want to go into another place of another room in the home, instead of you cranking up the entire HVAC system to get that one room ready, you can just do it with this device, and it saves. That's where part of the energy savings comes in, and where you can actually control specific areas of the home. And I really, really like it. I think folks who are thinking ahead, thinking about containing costs, and of course just simply wanting a comfortable home, find this solution very appealing, at least just for those conversations that we've just had just now. You talked a lot about the team, you talked about the technology, we even talked about what drew you to Smart Cocoon. But I'm sure our audience is curious about Andrew Bowen, the person. Let's talk about him for a moment. Let's talk about him. Now, Andrew, you spent, I think, if memory serves from our research, about 7 years at the Bank of Canada.
Correct.
Is that about right? Yeah. And that's after you finished up your MBA at Queen's University, highly respected university here in Canada. At the Bank of Canada, curious to know just one thing that you learned there that you're applying in your CEO chair at Smart Cocoon.
So I mean, obviously the one thing is I got you very used to it. One of there's many things I did at the Bank of Canada. So one of them was implementing monetary policy. I was also a treasury manager where I managed billions of dollars. So I'm very comfortable with big numbers, which I love. But one of the things that I learned there, one of the specific things that you wouldn't think of innovation so much in this space, was when I was doing when I was a treasury manager. One of the things that becomes challenging is that you kind of have these cash balances that kind of go up and down. As you know now, high interest rates means when you're holding cash balances, it costs you a lot of money, right? You don't want just money sitting there, as you well know as a wealth manager, right? Like you don't want money not doing anything, right? So the more money you have, we're basically paying interest on outstanding debt on that. And some of the tools we had at the time were things like treasury bills where they'd mature every 90 days or 30 days. And so when I was there, we started thinking about like, why do they have to be 90 days? Like, why can't I do one for 8 days or 9 days and then match that to our cash inflows and outflows? And I don't know if it was just they let me do it because I was younger or whatnot, because they thought the idea was good, but somehow I managed to really push the limits, even though some of the market guys were like, I don't know if we're pushing this too far. Like, are like, the financial institutions going to be actually interested in these bills, right? On these shorter term bills. And it turned out, we said, well, let's try it. Like my philosophy, try it, let's see what happens. We won't be counting on the money, but if it doesn't work out, or we pay too much, then we'll know not to do this again. But it ended up being fantastic because they have the same problem as we do, right? They don't have maturities that are necessarily falling in exactly 90 days or 30 days, and so we do these, some would be like 6 days, some would be 9 days, some would be 13 days, for example. And so we ended up having like massively oversubscribed to these auctions.
Incredible.
And so that's the same philosophy I take to Smart Cocoon. It's like, you have to think, don't get yourself locked into doing things a certain way because that's the way it's been done for 20 or 30 years. You have to think about, what are the tools we have now that we can use differently and in different ways? And how can we start testing that and getting feedback to see how we do it? So we didn't go out and do like 1,000 of these or 100 of these kind of right away. We said, okay, let's test one, let's see what happens. And then again, always have a backup plan if it doesn't work out. But then it worked. And then we just kept trying, and then we pushed our boundaries a little bit more. And then it ended up being successful, and it saved literally millions of dollars in interest costs, right? So it's that's what I love, I think, about it being like, leading a company and leading with team is like encouraging people, like, think differently. Like, don't get boxed into this one solution. And that's also what I love about working for this company is the creativity we're starting to see about, okay, we've done this right now, but what are other things we can do that can make our customer lives better even within our existing unit? And I'll give you an example of that. That's something that we're thinking about now, is that right now, because we're in the ductwork, we can actually start to measure how much airflow is coming into that room. And the reason why this is important is that all of us, and I'm guilty of this too, is that sometimes we forget to change our air filters in our furnace, or maybe we don't, maybe we don't change it as often as we like, right? And
I'm sure you're the only one. You're the only one. And so, me too.
So there's two of us in the 8 billion in the world. But so for me, it's things like that to think about, that's having an impact on the air quality of your home, right? And if we were able to say, like, we know, because we'll see that basically, the actual airflow is decreasing, we can actually give you a little ping to say, I think it's time for you to change your furnace filter, right? And then again, that's a small thing that we can do, but also help a small difference to help the customer's life be a little bit better, right? Again, with their health, making sure they kind of change, for example, their furnace filters. So those are some of the things that how I want to kind of push our technology forward. Again, always thinking about the customer. How do we make their lives easier, right? And how can we help them do little things so they don't have to think about it anymore? You won't have to think about when to change my furnace filter, do a reminder. We'll tell you when it's time. Because some of the challenge, even I'll just give you an example for this furnace filter, why it's a complicated problem is that sometimes companies will say, oh, it's 30 days or it's 90 days or whatever, or every 3 months or every 6 months. The problem is everybody's home is different. We all live differently. Some of us might have a bunch of pets. Some of us might burn a lot of candles. Some of us might leave the windows open all the time. There's a lot of pollen coming in, for example. Everybody lives differently, so we can't put everybody in a box in terms of when you need to change these things. But with technology, we can start to know when you need to change it, so you don't have to think about it anymore. It's done for you. And so that's what gets me excited about Smart Cocoon and kind of the path forward. And again, with the app, you can do these creative things, right? So
you continue to innovate and simplify clients' lives or customers' lives. You talked earlier, I want to talk some more about that, and thank you for sharing that example. It's really, really powerful. As we talk more, as people listen to this conversation, they're hearing and learning more. If they haven't heard about Smart Cocoon before, they're learning a lot about it in this conversation, which is what the intent of this dialogue is. You talked about some big numbers and how you're comfortable with big numbers. You also talked about partnerships. I want to tackle those two topics separately, but I'd like to lead with the big numbers conversation. For example, in Smart Cocoon, when we at PANGEA took a look at the opportunity of partnering and supporting the growth of Smart Cocoon, we saw the economic potential and the environmental benefits, by the way. We saw some, ESG is top of mind for our leadership team. We saw 5.2 million homes in Ontario, of 3.2 of which are multi-story homes, which could probably benefit from this, and of course benefiting from an average 30% reduction on HVAC consumption. This results, and here's the big number that wowed us, this results in $12.5 billion a year in savings for that number, and about 21 million metric tons of CO2 reduction. This was equivalent to about 2.5 million homes or 4.5 million cars being removed from burning carbon. So when we saw the impact, we actually embraced these big numbers that you talk about. And by the way, that's just in Ontario. We haven't talked about the total market size, which is exponentially bigger in North America. Total market homes being about 125 million homes, I think, is what that would translate to. So I got really, really energized by what we're about to do with these big numbers. I'd love for you to talk about your path forward to tackling some of these big numbers in whichever way you choose on this call. And which ones you want to highlight and focus on, I'll leave it to you to decide. But maybe 1 or 2 or 3 metrics that you're looking at over the next year or two for Smart Cocoon to tackle and break into these numbers.
Oh, it's a great question, and I think actually just you picking up on that partnership again and our partnership here, Declan. I think one of the things that, again, when you have values that align, that's when the magic happens, and that's my personal belief, right? And I think that's why when I work with someone like you, and I know we've had conversations before, and you're always spark a new idea for me, right? It's like, oh, you talked about this, like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, how do we kind of implement that? And I think that's where the magic happens. And I think that's what's so kind of like key about partnerships. And we know, so just in terms of where we want to go, right? We want to reach, there's basically for forced air homes in Canada and the US, there's 64 million of them. And so these are the homes that we want to go after. This is a big, big market that we want to go after, right? And we want to reach, 3.2 million of them kind of within the next kind of few years. And we have very, very big ambitions to where we want to go. And in order to do that, the only way we can reach that many people is through partnerships, right? We cannot reach them all alone. So as you know, we sell through kind of like some of our top tier retail channels like Home Depot, Lowe's, kind of Best Buy. As kind of one of the channels, but as what I talked about before was those kind of HVAC kind of service companies. The reason why I think they're so important is that they've experienced this problem over and over again. And can you imagine, as a service company going into someone's home and they have a problem that has to do with what you do, but you can't fix it or fix it in a way that's affordable for many people without having to demolish their home or spend tens of thousands of dollars. And that is kind of where, I think the big aha moment is for the industry, is that we have to start looking at new solutions that technology can enable. And that's why for us, that's kind of like the big, the way we're going to reach these 3.2 million homes is all of these companies who want to do right by their customers and give them these new solutions that weren't available before. And to me, what success looks like for Smart Cocoon in 3 or 5 years is that if you were to talk to someone and say, hey, I've got this room that's 202 full. I didn't sleep well last night because my room was so hot because it was 40 degrees inside or whatever, right?
Sure.
I'm talking Celsius here for our Canadian viewers. But, and then someone would say, hey, did you know about the Smart Cocoon that does this? And you were like, oh, I didn't know. But that's, to me, is when we've kind of hit success, is that we've made enough of a difference in people's lives that they want to tell other people about their experience and how it kind of helped them. And it's one of those, to me, again, going back to my philosophies and why I joined Smart Cocoon, how amazing is it, like those big numbers that you talked about, that none of us have to make this, $1,000 investment or multi-$1,000 investment to make this big change. It can have an impact on Ontario, it can have an impact on Canada, it can have an impact on North America, it can have an impact on the world. Right? We're able to do that with each of us just making a small, different decision. At the same time, what I love about Smart Cocoon, it gives you that comfort. It makes you feel more comfortable. So you're winning every way. Sometimes we have to, unfortunately, make trade-offs, right? Where we have to say, we want to save energy, but we have to be less comfortable, or if we want to be better for the environment, then I have to maybe shift to what my preferences might have been before a little bit to kind of, compensate for that. But this is one of those solutions where you don't need that. And I think that's part of the reason what's going to fuel this growth. The other part of what you're seeing now is, even if you saw the budget this week with the, with the federal government, clean tech is where they want to make the investments. They know we need a better way of managing our energy and creating more kind of green energy, as well as, but not only creating more green energy, we also need to make sure that we're using that energy that we have in the most effective way. And that's where kind of Smart Cocoon comes in. And you're seeing that, obviously, you've seen the massive stimulus in the US for the clean tech industry as well. So this is where the world is going. And I think we're in the right place at the right time. And we're excited to, if we can make a little bit of a difference in people's homes, like, to me, that's what gets me excited. If it makes your life just a little bit better in what we do as a company, that's what gets us out of bed in the morning and making sure that we're working hard for our customers.
Yeah, and we at PANGEA, we see it, we feel it, we know your team and your leadership team is hard at work, and all members of the team are hard at work and in creating a difference in the lives of the customers of Smart Cocoon. And even so much so, at PANGEA, we've partnered with Smart Cocoon to lower cost of living expenses for our clients by providing some of our clients with Smart Cocoon devices, which is a project that you and I collaborated on, excuse me, and our clients with significant rental property portfolios, for example, they benefit from the up to 30% reduction in energy costs just from installing Smart Cocoon devices in their properties. And as a person who knows numbers very well, you know this and I know this, every little bit of savings helps when scale matters, and Smart Cocoon devices installed even on multiple floors within client residences make a massive difference when we pull all the numbers together as a community. And I think that's some of the change that we want to continue to make here with you in any difference that we can make at PANGEA with Smart Cocoon. And I thank you for talking about that. Now, I know we tried to get a bit into the partnerships. You mentioned at a high level the Home Depot. You mentioned the Lowe's, Best Buy, Amazon, another big name that Smart Cocoon is connected with. Why don't I create some space for you to share a bit more about the developments you've had with those types of big name partnerships, and where we're looking at tackling some other big ones, even in the Canadian or in the US space, because guess what? Smart Cocoon works very well for our friends across the border. Over to you, Andrew.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Declan. So it's a great question. So those top tier retailers that we just talked about, like Home Depot, Lowe's. So originally when the Canadian started, as we know, we're a Canadian company, which we're very, very proud of. And we started really in the Canadian market. And then what we were finding is that, this problem, like in Canada, for most of Canada, we have the two problems. We have in the winter time, we get cold winters, so we're too cold in some rooms at our home. And in the summer, we're too hot in some of our rooms because we have that kind of, that major kind of temperature shift here in Canada. What's interesting, and so obviously our product fits very well with that. And what's interesting was we knew that same problem kind of existed for massive parts of the U.S. Some of the parts of the North, say for example, the North Midwest kind of U.S. has a similar problem to, say for example, us in Ontario, where they got the hot, humid summers and then the cold winters. But there's other places in, like, say for the Southeast U.S. That they experience, like, obviously very hot kind of weather. They also have all of them use most of them use central kind of air conditioning units, which again is where we fit in with kind of forced air systems. So what we wanted to do is say, we know there's a whole bunch of homes that we're not reaching. How can we start reaching more of these homes? And so you can imagine, so we started off, for example, with Lowe's USA. And as you can imagine, that's a kind of a really kind of, their market share, I believe, is around 30% in the US in terms of the, in that kind of side of the do-it-yourself kind of homeowner kind of business in the supplies. And then Home Depot is kind of the other kind of part of it. And so for us, we originally started kind of Home Depot in Canada. We've done very well with them, but we want to make sure that whatever we're doing in Canada, we should really be doing the same in the US. And that's why we're going to add in Home Depot USA. We're going to be adding in Best Buy USA. Again, and just to let you know, because there's different people shop at different places. So I'll give you an example, right? So Home Depot, they have, their typical profile is probably, more of a kind of, they're more of a gentleman going in there that's, middle-aged kind of thing, going in to get their kind of construction supplies that they're doing or whatnot. And they do a lot of things around their home, do it yourself. But then, for example, then you think about Best Buy. Best Buy brings in a lot of different people. So these could be people that more think about the smart home. I want all the kind of the energy efficient lights, and I want to have the security system and the automatic door ringer. And so they might be thinking about it a different way. And that's, again, where Smart Cocoon comes in. So one of the other things we didn't talk about earlier, but what's really interesting in the market is that in 2019, about, again, 15% or so of people had smart thermostats. But that number is expected to grow to about 65% by 2025. So what's really interesting about these smart thermostats is that your smart thermostat, again, goes back to that problem, you only have one for the entire home. But what they're doing, like people like Google Nest or Ecobee, they actually have temperature sensors that you can put in your individual rooms, which is really interesting. And for us, and again, this kind of relates to kind of the tech side of the business for people who are really kind of, want to make their homes smart. But what the interesting thing is, all these smart thermostats, I can put one of those temperature sensors in my office here, but it can't do anything. It'll just tell me my office is hot, but it can't change the temperature, right? Because it can only control the HVAC system for the entire home. It can't move more air in. And that's where, again, like with Smart Cocoon, how we work together, again, with retailers, you start to notice these trends where you're like, we have a hole that these smart thermostats can't fill, right? That they can tell me the temperature, but they can't change the room temperature, which is what people want. They don't need to know what the temperature is. They want it comfortable, right? And so that's why it's really important for really us to understand these different retailers and who they're bringing in, because people go at things a different way. And you talked about earlier, some people, it's important about greening their homes. That's really important to them. Some people, they want more energy efficiency because they're just like, I'm paying too much on utility bills. I need to get that down. How can I do it? Right? So we're kind of a partial solution, all of those. And so that's kind of on our retail side. As you know, we're kind of in like the physical home hardware retail as well. But so that's kind of covers off that aspect. And our aspirations are, right now we're on them through online, but our aspirations are to get into the Home Depots in store, for example, because this is really a product that everybody needs. It's simple to kind of, simple and quick to install. and it really fits in with the smart home. And even places like Home Depot, if you'll see in their kind of displays now, you're starting to see a lot more of the smart home lighting, the smart locks. This is kind of where people are going now. They just want their homes to be a little bit smarter than they used to be.
You made a statement that the smart Cocoon device really it fills a hole where Ecobee and Nest and all the other technology integrations can't and aren't able to do right now. And my initial thought when I heard that's both a figurative and literal thing that smart Cocoon does, is you do fit into the space in the vents in the whole thing. So I really enjoyed you painting the picture that way. But interestingly enough, as we take care of family money, we also look at the business dimension of things. And I think to myself, well, if Ecobee and Nest, which are massive in their own right, take a look at smart Cocoon, are you seeing down the road that they could be potential partners or even exit partners or acquisition partners? Or how do you see those relationships over the next 3 to 5 years? And forgive me if I put you on the spot there. I know you can share some things, but what are your thoughts on it?
No, I think that's definitely, because how I always look at it is I would look at it from their point of view. What would be attractive for me? If we were to get acquired, that could definitely be a route, because our mission here at Smart Cocoon is to get into as many homes as we can and to grow, right? We know we help people feel more comfortable. We know we help save energy, and we know that helps kind of green homes. So it's a good thing we want to do. We want to kind of spread out. Obviously, these are big companies like Google and Ecobee kind of thing that could be a really good kind of synergy with us. And the reason for them strategically, why it makes sense for them, is that you can imagine you put in the smart thermostat, and smart thermostats will actually help you save energy as well, because they do things like occupancy sensing, knowing when to turn on and off, shifting temperature down lower, for example, when you're sleeping. And so they're really smart. So they actually help save energy too. But if you think about them working alone compared to us working together, where we can say, you know what? This room that I'm in the office where you're sensing occupancy, I want that at the right temperature. But all the other rooms of the house that I don't want, that no one's in right now, we don't need them at that same temperature. And that's where you can see where they're like, holy crap, like this is kind of this solution that we want for customers, because we're actually being able to change the temperature where the customer is right now in their home, right? If they want to use occupancy sensing, for example. And that's, to me, is why it makes it a very strategic acquisition for them, is because it would give them a leg up to their competition, because they can actually change the temperature in any room in your home as opposed to tell you what it is. So you can imagine Google having that versus Ecobee not having that, what difference that would make in terms of your competitive positioning.
Good. Well, and I feel like as you're thinking through this, you're definitely seeing a few years out. And I'd like to shift the conversation there as we look to wrap up this conversation. Let's take a look at the future through the eyes of CEO Andrew Bowen at Smart Cocoon. What is he seeing 3 years from now?
So 3 years from now, I think the biggest thing is I want us to have made a difference in our customers' homes. I almost want people to almost forget that we're there, because now they're comfortable. It's kind of like, if you've ever been too hot, or if you've ever you're on the beach and you get sand in your pants kind of thing. Once it's there, it's like you can't forget it. That's all you can think about, right? And eventually, once you kind of cleaned off and everything, you're like, you don't notice it anymore because you're comfortable. And that's what life should be in your home. You shouldn't notice it that you're uncomfortable, right? You should always be comfortable. And that's what I want for our customers. And the thing is, for Smart Cocoon, the vision is that we help customers in even more ways, right? So I talked about, we want to be in like 3.2 million homes within a few years. We know the more homes we help, the better we're helping them have a better life. We're helping the environment. We're helping kind of our energy crisis. There's a lot of good things that we're doing. And the other part is, I really want to be part of this clean tech, our company to be part of this clean tech space in Canada. This is where the world needs to go. We need as much clean tech as we can possibly get. And I want us to be an example where you don't necessarily have to have this, say I'm just talking about, because hydrogen's been a lot in the energy. Like, I think it's amazing what, for example, hydrogen's going to be able to do to the world in terms from an energy point of view. But there's also small things that you can do that can make a big difference. And to me, it's almost mind-blowing, right? Like how a small device, that's, like just over $100 can have this big difference in your home and the environment when you scale it out to all of these places.
Right.
And not only that, in terms of our vision, so we talked a little bit before about adding new features to, again, enhance, like, for example, with your air filters in your people's homes. So giving, again, other ways that we can try and help make people's lives better. But one of the other things that we're working on now, and we just had another recent kind of technology grant for this, is to take that same technology and bring that into the commercial space. Because these same challenges that we're experiencing in homes with rooms that are too hot or too cold are all over it. I mean, you'll see that in condo buildings, you'll see that in manufacturing and warehousing, where the air is not, the warm or cool air is not where you need it. And because of, the different energy needs in different places, again, you're overheating and overcooling. So you can imagine for us, that's a massive opportunity, because that's a global market opportunity and another multi-billion-dollar kind of market. And that's another place that we want to make sure that we're setting our foot in to make the biggest difference we can.
Well, things certainly are heating up at Smart Cocoon. I'm hearing it. You have the devices to keep us all cool and comfortable. We are so pleased to be a partner with Smart Cocoon. Andrew, we want to thank you so very much for the time you've taken today to share with us. It means a lot in your busy schedule. Why don't we commit to reconnecting in the quarters ahead to get an update for folks who are listening intently to the progress of Smart Cocoon. Those who want to participate, they can definitely reach out to you directly. We'll have your contact information at PANGEA so that you can tell them directly more of the story on a one-on-one basis if they need to hear more that way, and you can cascade some information that way. There's also the website that folks can visit, which we'll put up on the podcast so folks have a reference point. Thank you again, Andrew, for your time today. We appreciate you very much and all the positive impact you're making on the environmental side, in the pocketbooks of Canadians, and really to transform the way we enjoy and remain comfortable in our homes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Declan. It's a pleasure to partner with you.
A real pleasure. Bye-bye now.